All righty. So today's question is a long one, but I think there's a lot in here. And I brought in my business partner to help me. All right. I have been a long time reader of your website. I stumbled upon your YouTube videos and was surprised to learn that a lot of the skills I have developed as a freelance writer could be applied to a staff position in Congress. I also have a master's degree and do some freelance writing in not only science, but business, health, technology, and policy. I'm writing because I'm wondering, what are my real chances of landing a job in Congress? Are there ways to improve my chances? Is such a thing even possible as someone who has little actual congressional experience? I have interned in Congress before, but I quit my internship because it was too expensive. I was living in a hotel. I then received another internship offer, but quit on the spot after I realized I did not have what it takes. I have heard of people interning for 2 years. I do not have the funds to make that happen. The problem is that I'm 36, and so when I was interning, I was the oldest person there. I was the same age as the chief of staff. My friend who worked in the Senate told me I am overqualified for internship jobs and could go straight to a staff position. I also live in Oklahoma currently. I also currently live in Oklahoma running my own freelance writing business. So I'm trying to see if I can make the leap. What type of advice can you give me? Do you offer this type of advising as a service? How does the process work and how much would it cost? I am a small business owner, but have launched my business in February. And so I don't have a huge budget. I have a bachelor's from a phenomenal school. I won't share the school, but it's probably top two in the country, and a master's from the best school here in DC in neuroscience. So she is pretty brilliant. And I love policy. My one-page political resume is attached. I would appreciate your guidance. All right. So first off, let me just share that this candidate, I won't say genius, but has attended the best science school in the country and went to Georgetown for her master's. So she's, yeah, I think getting a major in chemistry means that you're very smart. If you landed a bachelor's in brain and cognitive science from one of the finest, so let me just say that getting a job in Congress, being a genius or not being a genius, it's challenging no matter what. I think it's important for everyone to know. You could go to Harvard or you could go wherever. Getting a job on Capitol Hill is challenging because there's only 15,000 congressional staff jobs and 300 million Americans. And it's very competitive. And honestly, it's actually not that difficult if you have a plan. If you're brilliant and you have no plan, it probably won't work. If you have a plan and you're not brilliant, there's a good chance that it will work. So let's kind of dissect a lot of the great items in here. First off is she's 36. If she is a strong writer, she is going to be phenomenally successful. And in my mind, right off the bat, I would say, okay, so at this point, she has an 80% chance of getting a job because she's a phenomenally strong writer. It could be research, it could be memos or committee hearings. If you can write very well, right? If she knows how to write, okay. I'm a good writer. I bet she's a great writer, probably amazing writer. But if she is a strong writer, that's 80% of the way there. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about money. She's 36 years old. Washington, D.C. is more affordable than people think, but more expensive than almost everywhere else. Washington, D.C. compared to San Francisco is easy. Washington, D.C. compared to New York City, in my view, is easy. But it's still very expensive. So I get where she's coming from. Living in a hotel is probably the most expensive way to do it. So I don't know if I think that that is the way I would go about it. Would be Craigslist. And I would take my time on Craigslist. I would find something furnished and I would have a good sense of who's in the house. Where do they work? Are they in Congress? Are they staffers? This is especially true if you've just landed a job and you're not sure where to live. Don't sign a lease here in DC. I did that in Houston and it was a disaster. I flew down to Houston, got off the plane, I looked at 3 apartments, I signed a 1-year deal. 4 or 5 hours later, I got back on the plane, I flew back to New York City. And then my dad was kind enough to help me with the U-Haul, with the car pulled behind it all the way to Houston from New York City. And I get there and I go, well, this is my neighborhood for a year. I'm stuck with this apartment for a year. I'm stuck with this neighborhood for a year. And I didn't know anything about the neighborhood. So in DC, do you want Georgetown? Do you want Adams Morgan? Do you want Old Town out in Virginia? Do you want Clarendon, Capitol Hill, Noma? So come to DC, get something where there's other folks. It's great to live with folks who are already on the Hill. If you come to DC and you live by yourself and you don't know anybody, oof, so don't live in a hotel if you can avoid it. It's incredibly expensive. Now, I was 28 years old when I went to the Hill, and I felt pretty old. There's a lot of youngsters that are in their 20s, 22, 23 that are running around. So I get where people are coming from when they're 40s, 50s, 60s. The military veterans who can retire in their mid 40s are too young. They still want to do stuff. They still want to be active. They still want to work. But they're always afraid about their age. And you know, everybody on the Hill is in their 20s. Can I work on the Hill? Yes, yes. Our Speaker of the House is 80. The president is close to 80. It's not stopping them. So a lot of folks worry about their age. When I was 28 years old, I interviewed for a legislative correspondent job. They cut the position. They were looking to fill the position. I interviewed for the position. Then there was a 6% and 5% for a total of 11% staff cut, budget cut. So they got rid of the position. I said to them, I will do the job anyway. And at that point, I was ready, so badly ready to be on the Hill. I was willing to do what it takes. And they said, all right, you're nuts, but that's fine. So I did. And for 6 months, I wrote the executive correspondence. So the CEO of MD Anderson or the CEO of Baylor Salmons will write a letter. Those folks cannot get a form letter. You need a custom letter. So I would put together a draft and then I would turn it over to the staff and then they would review and correct. So I don't look down on anybody that's willing to do a fellowship or an internship to get going. When people have been doing an internship for 2 years, that brings some serious alarm bells for me. They either have terrible luck or they have absolutely no plan, or they're not really ready to work on the Hill. They have the ability, but not the willingness. They have the willingness, but not the ability. If people are interning for 2 years, I'm not familiar of anybody off the top of my head who's been an intern for 2 years, but that seems alarming to me, and nobody has the funds to make that happen, right? So don't worry about that. So the next piece that you talk about here is the problem is that I was 36 years when I was interning. I was the oldest person there. I was the same age as the chief of staff. When I'm working with someone who's over 40 years old and they have a lot of experience, I tell them that they need to be very, very sensitive to the fact that individuals on the Hill might view them with concern. And the best example, I had a gentleman who had been a appointee in the Bush White House who wanted to come to the Hill. And we went up to the Hill and we had a meeting with the legislative director who probably was 29 or 30. And I knew the LD and I knew this guy who was wanting to get back on the Hill. And this was a guy who was a real deal guy. He was one of the youngest partners ever at his big law firm downtown. He then became a Bush appointee. In his home was this beautifully framed parchment of with the president's signature on it as a Senate conferee. It was really, really cool. And I said, listen, you're going to threaten some folks, so we need to be very careful. And at that meeting, the legislative director said, I kind of feel like I should be working for you, not the other way around. Now, because I knew the LD and I knew the guy, it was all cool. But you need to be careful of the fact that you stroll in, you're 36 years old, you've gone to a phenomenal college, you've gotten your master's, like you're going to have to just be cognizant of the fact that they might say, instead of becoming the LD, is she going to become the LD instead of me? I want to be the LD, but is she going to be so amazing? So just, you got to be really, really careful. And this is the competitive nature of politics and the competitive nature of careers. So you need to keep it very informal, and you need to understand that someone who's a phenomenal candidate to be a congressional staffer can run the risk of intimidating folks on the Hill who already have a goal set, and they don't want you to come in and take them off their path. So don't worry about your age, okay? I'm more worried about the money. So there's the amount of money that we want, and there's the amount of money that we need. If you're going to be in LA, 50 grand, senior LA, 65 grand, committee advisor, 95 grand and up, research analyst can vary, could be anywhere from 45 to 80. So you have to say to yourself, number one, do I want to stay in Oklahoma and do this job? The federal government has people working from home all over the United States of America. Congressional staffers all over the House are not coming to the office, they're working from home. They are calling constituents on their work mobiles from their homes. So we're in a new era where how feasible is it to do research for the Congressional Research Service, for whom that you would be phenomenally valuable to them, because I just think that you'd probably be amazing with writing and research. CRS, the Congress, both House and Senate, and then the federal government. I can think of a million places throughout the federal government where a candidate like you could be unbelievable. The problem here is that I'm the same age as the chief. My friend who served in the Senate said I'm overqualified for an internship and should go straight to a staff position. You are overqualified to be the intern that gets office supplies, but you are not overqualified to be the intern, which I don't like the word intern, I prefer the word fellow, who does research and constituent work and casework, so that over the course of what I view as a long interview, you can prove yourself, build a phenomenal reference, make a little money. You can get up to $1,800 per month. You can work for a specific office for up to 4 months. So $1,800 times 4 is $7,000. So you'll be about 6 grand roughly with taxes and whatnot. That's not nothing. So it's a little bit of cash, but more important, I believe, to your long-term strategy will be get it on your LinkedIn account, get it on the resume, build phenomenal references, work really hard for an office. When they need an opening, when they have an opening and they need someone to fill a position, bringing you to DC from Oklahoma is like bringing a congressional staffer to the DC office from a district office. So I think that there's a bad way to look about internships. Our mission is not to help people become interns. Our mission is to help people become staffers by using internships to move forward. So that's some of my advice. In terms of the process, I can basically just share what's already on the website, and it's listed there for free, and I'll put a link in the description for this video. But the reality is that we have the same system that we've used since 2012 to help people get jobs. I'll put the link in the description. It'll be worksheet number 1. This piece here, 2/3 of the journey, focuses very specifically on getting ready. Which members, which policy, House, Senate, can I afford it? How's my cover letter? How's my LinkedIn? How's my photo? How's my resume? You sharpen the axe for 8 hours, and then you spend 3 hours chopping down the tree. If you just set out and you start networking, you're going to get some phenomenal traction, and then you're going to send off a lousy resume, and the search is over. Preparation first, then networking and outreach, right? So the process is very simple. It's important. It's about 45 minutes to 60 minutes of really getting to know someone. What are your goals? What have you done? What would you like to do? Are you considering on the hill and off the hill? Only on the hill? What works best for you? You really actually need to learn about somebody, and you need to learn about what their goals are and what they're about. Where do they see themselves in 5 years? Where do they see themselves in 20 years? How much money do they want to make? How much can they afford? There's the amount that we want, and then how much do you need to get by? Cover your rent, student loans, car payment, children, whatever the case may be. So that's step one. 1 hour introductory strategy session if you really want to do it right. You get a little file, okay? And in that file is a download of who you are, what you're about, and where you want to go. Okay, beautiful. Next, LinkedIn, your email signature, a script to email senior staff on the Hill, and then the resume, which you attach. Now, why is this stuff specifically important? You're going to send a carefully worded script to senior staffers in the Congress. In that email, you want your LinkedIn link in the signature because they don't know who you are. And if they like what they see in your email, which they will, they're going to click on your LinkedIn link. Well, when they go to your LinkedIn, you want it to look great. You want to look like you're a committee staffer. You want to have phenomenal experience on there. You want to give them a snapshot. I think of as the movie trailer to an amazing movie of who you are, what you're about. So you send the email, they click on the link, they look at your LinkedIn profile and they say, wow, pretty impressive, amazing schools, okay, love the experience, boom. Sounds great, how's Tuesday? Very informal, no pressure, I'm not asking for interviews. Then if they want to look at you a little bit further, because maybe they have an opening, maybe they want to see what you're about, because I happen to have something, but I need to see a little more. You attach a one page, not single spaced, one page PDF saved file. That way, if they open it on their phone, it looks good. If they open it up on their phone in Word, it will look terrible. Always PDF. Script, signature, LinkedIn link, great photo, one page resume, boom. So that's about 2 hours. So it's about an hour of getting to know you, figure out exactly what your goals are. In about an hour and 15 minutes, I can tackle a resume. May not be enough time to take care of the LinkedIn signature and email script, but I usually try. And then from there, your homework is, now where do I want to work? Which committees, which senators, and which House members. And this is worksheet number 2, right? So 25 House members, 5 United States senators, and then the committees. Now, how do you pick your committees? You love business, healthcare, technology, and policies general. Well, business is ways and means, healthcare is ways and means and energy and commerce, Senate Finance, Senate Health. Technology is very specific to the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. You look at the committees with jurisdiction over the issues you care about. Do you care about trade? Do you care about international diplomacy, international trade? You then take a look at all of the members on those committees and put them right here. And then we email the chiefs of staff that work in those offices. We email the legislative directors, we email the staff directors. If you do it the right way, you will get a 25 because of COVID, usually 33% response rate. So if you want to speak to one chief of staff, you need to email. It used to be 3, now it's 4 because it's harder to get folks to respond. I think they're at home and it's a little tougher now. So if you want to speak to 10 chiefs, you need to email 40 chiefs. If you want to speak to 10 legislative directors, you need to email 40 legislative directors. The beautiful thing for you is that you went to Georgetown. We have on our website a page that is dedicated to Georgetown University's alumni that work on the Hill, and there are over 400 people who work on Capitol Hill from Georgetown. So for you, when you send an email to those folks and say, good afternoon, thank you in advance for your time. By way of background, I recently completed my master's degree at Georgetown. I served as a congressional intern, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about congressional service in the remainder of 2020 and 2021. If you have time for a very informal telephone call, I would be very grateful. Simple, short, no pressure. You're trying to learn, you're trying to build a relationship, you're trying to get as much experience from them as possible. You will be amazed at how willing people are to share their experience and help one another, because they remember when they were trying to break in, when they were trying to get on the Hill for the first time. And you would be amazed if you go about it correctly. There are people who will send an email and get no response and then send a follow-up email that says, I have not heard from you. If I'm the chief of staff for a United States Senator and someone sends me an email that says, I have not heard from you, and really I'm doing you a favor to try to help you with your job search, you're done. So there's a right way to do it, there's a wrong way to do it. And if you do it the right way, there's no reason why someone with your background, a degree in neuroscience, someone who's a great writer, cannot successfully land an opportunity. If you have a plan, if you have a strategy, and if you select committees and members that make sense, and if you have a little bit of help, and if you're talking to the right people, I believe that you're going to be extremely successful. If you can afford to work in the Congress, if you're willing to put in the work, most important of all, if you're a team player, I believe that you can be tremendously successful. And if I look at the youngest people who've been successful, which are people in high school, and then I look at the oldest people who have been successful, who are people in their 50s and 60s, they all did the same thing. They stayed humble. They knew that it wasn't going to happen overnight. They followed this little checklist, and nothing on here is rocket science. And they put in the work. And I believe that when people on Capitol Hill, whether they're chiefs or staff directors, see someone who's really doing this search the right way, they're putting in the work, they're obviously very smart, they're great writers, you start getting in serious contention. And you build a massive congressional network literally out of thin air. You will have 50 to 60 people that you know in the Congress, and you've built this beautiful network out of thin air. So if you're willing to put in the work, right, there are a lot of people who are not going to carry you up Mount Everest, but they will guide you up Mount Everest. And I believe you can do it, you know? So congratulations. Thank you so much for this question. If you're watching this video and you have a question, please email it to me. My email is brent@timeonthehill.com. And if you're willing to take the time to write a great question, I'll do my best to answer it. So, all right. Thanks so much.